Welcome to Muckrakers, where we dig through the latest happenings around so called AI. In each episode, we highlight recent events, contextualize the most important ones, and try to separate muck from meaning. I'm your host, Jacob Hames, and joining me is my co host, Igor Kravchuk.
Thanks, Jacob. In this episode, we will mainly talk about why OpenAI is a bad business and why people invest in it anyway. But before we start on that, has not been that much in the otherwise noteworthy things, but Stanford's human-centered artificial intelligence unit has an, introduced or released a new version of their foundation model transparency index, which doesn't really rate any actually open models like Open ELM, but it still basically says that none of the large foundation model companies are at all transparent or trustworthy. So
Right. The highest scores are about like 53 and 54 for Meta and Blooms. And if Meta is at the top of a trustworthiness list, I have some major concerns.
I mean, it's transparency, not trustworthy, right?
That's
So like
true.
you can download the model, and then I think it was like Meta 53, Entropic 51, and OpenAI 49. So like it's a tight race.
Tight race for, yeah, a great amount. Also, Europe gathers global experts to draft a code of practice for AI, which is something that I have been calling for since I got into this field. So maybe we'll actually get one. That would be very good. I think
It's
people need that.
it's important to note that this already started on 30th of September, and they're now kind of like having sessions around this. Apparently, in April we will hear the results of this.
Mm,
And our final also runs like uh, OpenAI wins some and loses some in terms of talent. Another one of their important engineering leads, Tim Brooks, has defected to DeepMind, where he will be working on world models and video generation. Uh, Point aside, Sora still isn't out despite being announced to be released weeks ago. Uh, but OpenAI did score some genuine high grade talent from Microsoft Research that in the form of Sebastian Bubeck, famous for context optimization and bandit research amongst people who know, which goes into like some other also news about the relationship between OpenAI and Microsoft fraying.
yeah, so that leads us pretty well into what our main topic is today, which is understanding OpenAI's massive funding round and or OpenAI's bad business. So again, before we start these things, we like to say, why do we think this is relevant to you? Why should you care? And at least my take here is it's indicating that OpenAI has got to shift some course here. And because of their stature in the field, it is going to impact everyone, whether that's through like pressures indirectly or just because their primary like the primary player is doing something wildly different than they were before.
Yeah,
Um,
OpenAI is the player that is more or less the main responsible for the current AI hype after taking over from Google and DeepMind. And if they fail, it's going to have knock on effects on the whole hype bubble. If they get more funding, it means the bubble can at least survive for a bit longer for now.
yeah, and so this valuation round happened, I think, like a month ago, and we have mentioned this previously. We now have some more concrete information about it, so we wanted to talk more about like what it was, how much they got, and why maybe it doesn't make sense or why it does. So they got a valuation of like 157 billion or something like that,
Yes,
and
6.6 billion raised at 157 billion valuation.
right. And that valuation is 2 to 3 orders of magnitude off of what an economist, like someone who actually knows what they're doing with these, would say is warranted for their revenue stream. Um, it just doesn't really make sense. Like that's not the valuation that you would give a company that has the revenue stream that OpenAI does, especially when they have net losses. They are not making money; they're losing money. Right? You have the numbers, right, Igor?
Yes, the company is on pace to generate 3.6 billion in revenue this year, on mounting losses over 5 billion. So just to spell it out, this means they're spending $8.6 billion dollars to generate revenue of 3.6 billion. They do project a major revenue jump next year to 11.6 billion.
And I guess Anthropic is also raising, but like not to the same level.
I think they're aiming for a 30 billion valuation, and I think they're aiming for like a 1 or 2 billion, which is like billion. Like if you're a billionaire, you can spend like $10 million a year for 100 years, and you will still have money left over because you will have gotten interest on your money before. Like
Right.
these are insane numbers to raise. This is like stuff that like WeWork and other famously like failed investments raise. And I think we should talk a bit about how people justify this. Like, why do they invest so much,
Yeah.
and who is investing in this?
Yeah, that's a great point. All right. So funding in convertible debt. Wait, do you know what convertible debt is?
Basically, like first it's debt, and then you have an option to convert it into shares. So I think it has like some term sheet investment, like administrative benefits for a startup, but it's also a decent deal for the investor because debt has priority over
Gotcha. So these are the people who
normal
are
shares.
making funding in convertible debt are the ones that are like, we're not so sure about this.
Is the way I would look at it, but we should like double check this before we go strong in this. But like straight out investment is generally a sign of like
Confidence.
stronger belief or less leverage.
Yes. Okay. So in convertible debt, we've got Thrive Capital, Costla Ventures, Microsoft, and Nvidia. And then additionally, we had Altimeter Capital, Fidelity, SoftBank, and MGX participating. Um, Thrive Capital, which was one of those that did the convertible debt one, committed 1.2 billion with an option for 1 billion more next year. So like this is a big amount of money from even just one company here. But those are the big companies that we're talking about. I don't know if others there may be others, but I don't believe others are mentioned. Um,
For some context, like Thrive Capital is a VC fund founded by Joshua Kushner, who I yeah is the younger brother of Jared Kushner, aka son-in-law of Donald Trump, and uh,
God, thank
ra-
God that he came up in this. That was what I was hoping for actually, is that we were going to talk about Trump today.
launched its first institutional fund with 40 million from Peter Thiel and other investors. Has invested in companies like Anduril, Patreon, Robinhood, Scale AI, Spotify, Slack, Stripe.
Gotcha. So this guy throws
Like
his money around is basically what we're
it's also
saying.
the type of things also this is like decent VC, so that makes sense that they would get like decent deals. And that if they were the lead VC on this, then that's probably like Sam calling in like old pals
Hmm.
from the YC days. SoftBank is also worth mentioning. Do you want to talk about SoftBank, or do you know the background of SoftBank?
No, you should talk about it instead.
So Masayoshi Son is some people might call him like a uniquely bold and visionary investment genius. Other might call him the only person alive who has been like losing hundreds of billions of dollars of investment money and still has a fund to run. So like
Okay.
the SoftBank Vision Fund is famous now for just being a really, really, really bad fund. They have assets under management of 134 billion, and a lot of that money was invested into runaway successes like WeWork, Wirecard, and Cymergent, uh, which Wikipedia lists as just a few examples of SoftBank's reckless investing behavior. I think Masayoshi Son has been a meme in people who follow like finance and investment a bit as like this like dude who made some money at some point and is now like insanely influential and rich and just keeps getting money from other people who he hangs out with and then basically burns it, but because he has so much of it under management, like you can always like make up for it if you have like enough things. Son's investing strategy in the first and second SoftBank Vision funds, established in 2017 and 19, was being described as one reliant on the greater fool theory, and the lackluster performance of its investment and Masayoshi Son's presentation in the face of that have been ridiculed by specialized media. Reading off of Wikipedia. He has said that he is on Earth to make AGI a reality now. So the main point of saying this is like it's like a wild story, but like if you think about who invests in things, like startups don't go for investors like willy-nilly. You want like good investors, people who will get it both as a kind of like a validation of your thing for future investors, but also because of like strategic partnerships and to like get people who you can actually meaningfully spitball things, because like some of these deals involve getting board seats and stuff like this. So you don't want like crazy people to just give you money because they will still have like a say in that. Like Silicon Valley got that part right with like this billionaire asshole Hanneman or something like that, who really like threatens the company. And so getting Masayoshi Son as your big lead investor for people who know means that like either you had like a billion to fill and you had like enough like good investors to crowd him out, and so that's why like you might as well throw him in, or like you didn't have enough confidence from better ones, or you needed so much money that like you need to play at that. Microsoft and
Gotcha.
Nvidia, it makes sense, but like
Right.
Masayoshi Son is somebody who you'd only get in if either you just want to milk an idiot for cash, or you don't have any other choice.
I mean, to be fair, I love milking an idiot for cash. So like, it does seem appealing in that regard based on your description. But I like, yeah, giving him any sort of seat at the table does not sound like a good idea either.
So Muckrakers
So
is not soliciting investment from SoftBank Vision Fund at this moment, as a clear
no.
statement.
Uh well, but I if never mind. Okay. Investors have these all these investors have required them to go for profit. Well, maybe not all of them, but at least a significant portion of them agreed like no. Open AI, you have to go for profit if you want this money. And some have also said that they are going to require revenue targets for them to come back, which I think is pretty important to note here because and like while we were talking about this a little earlier, Igor said like you don't state that you need revenue targets to people that you trust. Like that's a little bit telling in itself. Um,
I would temper that as well, kind of like it depends how this was set. If this was like a thing of part of this funding is conditional on revenue funding being hit, then I would go behind that statement. If it is like a gentleman's agreement of like, okay, we will invest in you, but just to be clear, like this is the last one that is like on potential, and the next one we need like validation, because they've been getting money on potential for like years now. There's like
yes, and I believe that that is what it is. Not the first you said. It wasn't. It's conditional on. It is. We won't do this again unless.
so I don't think that's necessarily like horrible for them, but it's like like the noose hasn't been tightened yet, but there is now a rope on in the room.
Yes. Or as we like to say in like games and stuff, OpenAI is officially on a clock now, and they have until that clock runs out. It's been speculated to be either 12 months or 36 months, depending on how fast they burn the money that they've just gotten. Um, but that is what we're looking at right now. Also worth noting is that OpenAI asked investors, not clear if this is like in some sort of written or if it's just, you know, Sam Altman being a little boy, saying, "Please don't go to my competitors and invest your money in them," um, which some might think, "Oh, that doesn't sound good," and it's not. And I would guess that there are going to be some serious antitrust lawsuits uh, in the pipeline in the near future. So I think that's worth noting as well.
I don't think it's feasible because Microsoft competes with OpenAI. Like they have their own cloud thing, they have their own LLM plays. But let's see.
Yeah,
OpenAI is talking about this as a big win, which I guess makes sense because it means they can survive.
yeah,
Um, and I'm not sure if they should and if they're aware that this is not a big win, but it's worth like giving a shout out to like Ed Citron, who has predicted like part of what is now being said, because one of the things that we found in research is like a price hike is looming on
hmm
ChatGPT, where like the tendency on most of the foundation model APIs has been so far like making them cheaper, uh, which they're already VCs subsidized, but there's a limit to how far you can push that, I assume. So ideally, you should like just pass on if you make it like more efficient in a competitive market, which is what we're in right now. And in Etcitron's post about OpenAI being a bad business and like the bubble bursting, there's like a wonderful series of posts. He talked about this as one of the like warning shots of like, okay, the bubble is shaking, which is a price hike. Because if you are in a like in a good state, uh, then you wouldn't put the squeeze on the like market capture process without being forced to, basically. So
yeah,
either they have realized that this is a commodity market, there is no market to capture, everything is fungible, nobody cares about your model in particular, um, and they just need to become an actual business faster than they expected, um, or even worse, just like they've realized that they will not actually uh, be able to improve much on this, and so they need to start the process of like getting people used to actually pay for what is there and pray that it's enough to survive.
yeah. Also worth mentioning in like in researching for this episode, I tried really hard, this will come back later as well. But like, I tried really hard to understand why one would want to invest in this um, company, and what I found is that there are very few pieces out there that actually have substantial content that are supporting like we should be funding OpenAI and like this big AI, big tech AI stuff. Um, Andreessen Horowitz, which I guess is like probably like the one that you would expect would have a piece like this, but even so, I looked into it and it's basically just six different ways of saying it'll increase productivity, and then tacked on at the end is also China bad, uh, and we should be scared of them. It is like literally all the article says, and so even with the most optimistic angle, when you try to piece out the actual like reasons, it just seems very poorly defined in my opinion.
It's a lot
And
of
that
speculation. Like it's mainly
yes,
driven by all the potential. And one of the pieces that I found impression was like the bull case for OpenAI, which basically just shows like the hockey stick figure of OpenAI versus Google. at IPO. Like Google was actually like I think making money at IPO. I don't know about this of memory, but like they had a business model, and OpenAI is losing money, and they're still in like this like startup pre-seed phase. But their revenue is rising at a faster pace, like with a higher like hockey stick coefficient than Google's or Meta's.
Mm,
So
mm-hmm.
if you go by hockey stick go up and exponential is always exponential, and have a sigmoid theory of tech valuation, then it makes total sense to like if you can get in, you get in. Also because there's not really much else to invest in if you're a capitalist, and like like what other plays are there if you have like millions and billions to burn that you can hope to get like a 10x 100x return on.
So you're saying that it's like it comparatively there aren't really any like potentially big ticket technologies in the pipeline right now.
I'm saying Sam Altman is like highly connected, and like this is like a small uh, industry in like early stage tech, and like deep tech is already rare. Um, so if you are looking to deploy large amounts of capital into something that has like a potential high multiplier, this right now is like the only kind of salient industry to analyze. Instead of like it's just on people's radars, and then everything attached to that is also connected with it. So like, um, I don't think this is like necessarily like a monocausal driver, but you do have like portfolio approaches in capital deployment of this size.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can get into the OpenAI uh, fundraise, and you actually get like for profit shares and stuff like this, it's probably a good risk investment. If you really think about it, like
Mm-hmm.
like you have raised like Masayoshi on like 100 billion, and you invest one of this 100 billion into OpenAI.
That's
Uh,
probably good. Yeah.
like it makes sense on that scale as from a purely uh, hedging risk investment thing. I still think it's a bad investment, like if you look at it on its merits, but like as a like if you are a wealthy lawyer, you might as well burn 10,000 on Bitcoin even now, because fuck it, like for you this is not a lot of money.
Right. Yeah. No, that makes sense. So following that up, I guess maybe it's important to like try to dissect this a little bit further. How how is OpenAI making money? Because you said they like they have are spending what 8.6 billion to make 3.6 billion. So where is that 3.6 coming from?
So there's a lot of uncertainty in both these numbers as well, because one thing that we don't know is how much of this investment from, for example, Microsoft is in credits, is in Azure credits that are at a private valuation. Like, are they paying the same amount? Is it just like Microsoft gives them as much compute as they would be getting at a fair market rate, like after the discounts that everybody can get, at 200 million, but it costs Microsoft 50 million to provide because margins are crazy? Or is this cash on hand, and then there's also credits with a sweetheart deal, so this cash can last longer? We don't know that.
Okay.
Um, there's rumors of investment into data centers, so actually running hardware, which would maybe make sense if they think of themselves as an actual like provider at some point, and they're doing like the investment to not run on a cloud anymore.
But this
Um,
is still like speculation, right? Like how are they making money? Is it just the API?
they have the API. They have a private government cloud version apparently that like
So yeah, they probably made the government pay them a lot of money to do that.
and presumably one of their projections for peaks in revenue will be like big enterprise deals, big government deals around this, where they have like a private copy of ChatGPT running in a segregated network on Oracle's data or Fidelity's data or whatever, and does like like RAG plus reasoning in quotation marks with O1, this time not preview but the real one. Like, but all of this is speculation. Like what we know is there's an API, you pay for it, and they seem to be like the gorilla in the market. Like most spending on foundation model APIs goes towards ChatGPT right now, or it goes
Hmm.
towards OpenAI, with I think Anthropic and others being then like the next ones. Um, I'm a bit
Hmm.
surprised by that, but I presume this is partially just because of like enterprise going in already and them having the biggest brand. Because in my bubble, your bubble, Open Router and Anthropic is like the go-to, right? Or like Anthropic for actual usage, and then like if you want to like build stuff and be economic, then if you can do with cheaper, you might go something like Open Router for like the cheapest one you can find, or you self-host. Like there's like other options if you're in the know. So this is a
Yeah.
commodity, and they don't have the best commodity period. So like I I would be surprised if this sticks, but this is how they make money right now.
Okay. And they're set to increase prices, which you mentioned earlier. Like this, that kind of seems like a warning shot because to me, at this stage in their like plan, I feel like they're not at the point where they can hike costs without losing customers. Um, and so they really have to need that money in order to be doing this. At least that's how I'm seeing it.
I also need to say like before I get called off, like both Anthropic and OpenAI, they also have this consumer facing element of like the
Hmm.
actual like ChatGPT Pro um, uh, flat rate payment, where like for most casual users the API would be cheaper, but you need to actually be comfortable using APIs or console stuff to uh, leverage that. So they have like I think a few 100 million paying users with $20 like a month or something like that.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. And that's probably like way more than is actually being sold to them in
For most users, yeah.
yeah. So, um tying into that is in terms of like what other people are saying. Um the economists and uh most of the journalists, at least that I was saying again, I really tried to look for like all of the arguments, and it seems like the hype cycle is dying. It seems like people like the bill is coming due, and people are saying, "Wait, where? Like you said this was gonna be great, and it's not. So like, show me the money."
I I, th-
And sorry, go ahead.
I think we need to be nuanced and say like the hype cycle is developing differently in different communities. That's like a cleaner way. Like the narrative is shifting, but like in some cases it's dying. In some cases it's being transformed and kind of like receding to safer ground. And in our case, it's just dying. Also, just adding correct us, not hundreds of millions. They have hundreds of millions of users, but as of July 24, ChatGPT Plus had 7.7 million for $20 a month. So like 140 million, 150 million um, per month. And then 1.2 million users, $50 a month for enterprise, and 1 million roughly for teams for 25. So that's how they get to their like free-ish billion dollar revenue, which is like, this is like, if this was a normal company and they had actually like sold at cost, this would be very impressive, like solid company. The question is like, is it that? And the answer we know is no. But to the hype cycle, why would you say, like, because like we are strongly anti-hype on this podcast, right?
Yes, that's definitely true.
So would you say this is just our bubble, or why do you say the hype cycle is dying in how people are talking about it?
So, I mean, you messaged me a tweet this week that was just some random guy. Like I don't think you knew him before. Just it was shared, but he was like, it seems like the narrative is shifting. You know, Apple releases this paper that basically says your models aren't actually understanding. Um, with the one we talked about last week, GSM synthetic or something like that. I don't think
Yeah.
that's what it's called, but
Limitations of mathematical reasoning of LLMs or something like that.
yeah. Um, and you've got people like shitting on Copilot that are relatively big names. Every single article you can find talks about how the AI bubble is going to burst soon. Like I said, there's no substantive articles other than like the Andreessen Horowitz one, which again says increased productivity in 6 ways and closes with China bad, which is like, okay, if that's the best argument, I I don't know what to say to it. Um, but like looking at, let's see, Goldman Sachs recently had a report called Gen AI: Too Much Spend, Too Little Benefit, and it talked to many people across the spectrum of like what they think AI will do. And the pessimists or the skeptics, so to speak, are like, yeah, it's not going to do anything. Or the optimistic skeptic in this case, which was Darren Acemoglu, was like, yeah, it's going to do something. It's going to increase things, but that's going to be within the next 10 years, and it's not going to be like, more than 1%. And then they're like true optimists, basically the people who are excited about AI and think that the excitement is warranted. Even they are saying like the actual meaningful value add from all this AI stuff is going to happen within the next 10 years, and the killer app, so to speak, hasn't come out yet. It's not there.
Yeah, so like I think it's worth like doing like two things. Like one is like splitting the communities a bit more than just like the true believers. Like, who are these people, and like why are they so into it in different cases?
Mm-hmm.
And then like thinking about, okay, like when we say like OpenAI is bad business, we really mean like OpenAI in particular, right? Like there's like other ways you can make money with AI, and that is sometimes mixed into some of these predictions, and it's worth distinguishing the two of
Mm.
them.
Yes, yes, I would agree. And like, yeah, I think that can be seen. I mean, I think that the technology itself, when applied narrowly, is fantastic. I think it's very useful in certain cases. Um,
So like, to be precise, because like this is one of these things of like, this is like a tautological statement that like carefully applied niche technology can have application in its niche. Like, to give an example, like if Adobe did their Firefly thing on actually like legally impeccably sourced images, which apparently they haven't, despite claiming to do so.
yeah,
Um, but let us imagine that exists, or imagine like you grab like an ethically curated data set and you train an LLM on that. Like, there's use cases for this, and you can build
right.
like genuine economic value around recording a meeting, having Whisper transcribe it, and then summarizing it. Like, that's not the thing we rail against. And likewise, um, you can make like a spectrum from companies like that are just doing statistics for products, which has been a thing for 50 plus years,
Mm-hmm.
over something like DeepMind and to some degrees like Google and Meta, where I think we have slightly different opinions about them. But like these are companies with a business model that includes AI, but DeepMind in particular is still very much on the like this is a targeted tool. It's gonna give you like protein folding. It's gonna give you insights from large amounts of data. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah,
And
I mean, sorry, go ahead.
no, you had like a
Well, I
counterpoint to
so
this.
so my thought, Google incorporating generative AI into their search results really pisses me off, and like enough for me to basically stop using Google altogether, um, because they're opting everyone into something that is more costly in terms of like energy, and therefore fossil fuel outputs because no one's actually using renewable energy in a meaningful way yet, except for very like small niche areas. And so what that and they're doing that, which I hadn't quite put together before we had talked, but now what I'm seeing is like they're doing that because it's valuable to train on that data, and to see like what people like and don't like about it. But that's opting everyone into their like schema on this, when they don't necessarily want it. So in that way, like I find DeepMind more, I less like them simply because of that. I think in most cases it is narrow stuff and like that's cool, but yeah, it just really is off putting.
Yeah, this is like a separate argument for like the entitification of Google as part of corporate bullshit. I agree with you, like that sucks. But from a business perspective, it makes sense because like the Google users are and have never been the users; they have been the product. So like if they can get training data from you to serve the enterprise clients with like better LLM information retrieval, while you still watch and click on the ads, or if they can like start to tailor the ads to you and like sneak it into the Gen AI, from their perspective, that's like at least a rational play under the like new Google thing. And Ed Citron has an article, "The Man Who Killed Google," where he basically explains when Google started to include ad conversion KPIs in the way they actually build the platform, which is
Mm.
when Google went to shit and everybody started complaining about it. So, like, my point isn't that this is cool. My point is that this is capitalist rational. That if you are Google and you deploy AI in this way, you're still making money off ads and enterprise clients, and that makes sense. Microsoft makes money by people running AI stuff on Azure, people using some Microsoft endpoint that they pay for in Office, and a bunch of other stuff. Like that makes sense. Meta is doing the commoditize your complement play. They just want people to like do content to engage on social media. They don't care if it's plagiarized, stolen slop. They just want people looking at stuff that they can use to target ads and display ads. So, like, all
Right.
of that makes sense. It's not doing what is like the final step towards like the frontier, which is like the so called frontier labs, which are basically saying this is useful for everything. You will all be using this every day forever, um, at some point. And also, this might completely revolutionize the way we do everything from science to other things. Like,
Mm-hmm.
basically, like it's the everything machine, and the way it makes money is it does everything that previously humans were doing with cognitive skills. Like, that's like a very different product description and how you make money than I harvest your data and serve you ads because that's a proven business a business model. That's like one big distinction in how AI companies work. And then um, within that, you also have like from the AI index, like the state of AI report from like I think a Stanford lab, um,
Mm-hmm.
how businesses are using AI right now. Like 75% of that is we called it spam, but
Yeah.
like in the business you would call it contact center automation, personalization, and custom acquisition. So like creating generic slop content for people who you don't really care about, but you need to go through some form of like mimicry of human interaction due to legal or market like dynamics, and you're like forced to do that. And another like almost quarter is AI based enhancement of products. So like this is the stuff that on its own could maybe be like a niche that you might want to be in. You know, like doing vector search is useful. Like semantic search is a useful thing you can do with AI, but this is
Right.
not foundation model. Uh, so
Right.
the yeah, so like this is like an important like what usage is there of foundation models right now? It is slop, both like slop code if you need to write boilerplate. It is slop uh, human interaction and slop cognition. And we will have a future episode where we talk about why that part might actually not be a horribly bad business, but it is not what they need it to be, which is this
Yeah.
everything machine that can do everything.
Right. And I guess another thing that's like worth mentioning maybe and like part of how we're understanding why this is happening is the companies that are investing, like the actual companies, I mean the investment firms have their own things and just make money, right? But like Nvidia, big name, invested in OpenAI. They stand to gain if OpenAI can pressure more uh like reliance on AI because they make the only chips that are viable, basically. Um, and so like this is a winning play for them, regardless of OpenAI failing or not, because it will like push them. I mean, obviously they want to win, like they want to gain more money if possible, but even if they don't, it still pushes them to the top in what they do. At least that's how I'm seeing it.
You could look at it as like a marketing budget.
Yeah. Wow.
Similar for Microsoft. Like Microsoft will have their own enterprise offering. I think they already have, and like they will get a cut of that. And so like that's one play, and also just like this overall smart stuff. Like Microsoft has the sales channels for enterprise clients a lot more than OpenAI. So for them, it makes total sense to invest. There's also other dynamics which goes a bit to like who is being hyped and uh like who invests and who's being hyped. Like the other investors are either like VCs, which we talked about it. For them, it's like rational to invest if they can. And the particular VCs who took the lead are like Silicon Valley. Like they're good VCs apparently, like in that community, but like they're deep in this mindset. But also like Fidelity and like big capital basically. Like they
Mm-hmm.
benefit on a systemic level if there is the plausible threat of automation. It doesn't need to be the actual ability to automate, but just making you feel like you have less leverage whether or not you're going to ask for a raise. That's going to like
Right.
have systemic benefits for all of their portfolio companies if they can squeeze labor costs lower.
Union busting is a lot easier when you can say, okay, fine, we're going to outsource your work to AI if you don't come into work. Like, it just is. Um, and that is another concrete value that simply by investing in OpenAI, like these companies gain. And so, yeah, to me, that's like how we're understanding why why this is the case.
And just to like finish the point with who in the community, like you can divide things into like the Kool-Aid drinkers or grifters, like depending
Mm-hmm.
on whether they're true believers or not. So like from my perspective, the entropic people are in the true believer camp, just based on who I know, who knows people, the way they talk, also what they do. Where like I don't think we like entropic, but we dislike them the least from the Frontier Labs, probably, because like at least for me, speaking for myself, like I can see in the way they have set up the company from the get go, from in the way they have done their AI systems, and from the bitching and whining of people who can't get close to say racist shit, that like they seem to care a bit more about the stuff that I care about,
Mm-hmm.
and that like makes them marginally better. It's like I prefer Eliezer Yudkowsky to like the we need to build the AGI to control it type AGI believer.
But also, wait, Eliezer hasn't backed Anthropic, has he?
I don't think he has. I think
No.
he's just like overall sad and depressed by having contributed to OpenAI existing.
Well, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But like I just use him as the example, kind of like I don't think he's correct in the way he analyzes things for many reasons. But he has consistently done like things that as a human I don't have anything against him. Like he has consistently made clear that he thinks like eugenics is bullshit and Nazis can fuck off. He has like there's not a given thing in the rationalist community, and he has consistently basically called for not doing AI and actually doing things to stop AI, rather than this, oh, it is so dangerous, therefore we must be the builders because China. Like it's a much more like sympathetic thing if you're in what I think is like a apocalyptic like tech doomsday cult. Separate episode before that statement expansion. So we have like these like Kool-Aid drinkers and drifters, and then you have like the systemic improvement people. Like I had a chat with a guy that I knew who used to be McKinsey, but like we agreed that like the most likely winning scenario for AI is another 7% year over year growth rate of the global economy via improved AI, whatever. Which like is not nothing. Like if you have like a multi-trillion, hundreds of $1 trillion economy, and you still get like 7% of growth year over year, like that is a big improvement. And a lot of the like kind of like non-hype optimistic things that are also in this state of AI report are like things like you get like 10% cost reduction and 10% revenue growth in some sectors. You like if you're dealing with hundreds of millions and billions of dollars of like overall like operational things, like stuff like that is like a huge gain. Like if you're like a company that has a revenue of 100 billion and you can like improve your revenue by 10%, like that's some real shit. So like
Yeah.
that's like the non hype thing, and like these will still exist, but they are wanting to see results.
Yeah.
And then like there's the normal people. There's like you and me, or like people on the ground, and like there I would say like the hype is dying or has died a long time ago. Like if you're not a tech bro, then like O1 is a bit meh. People make fun of it. Everything has been a bit meh. Sora still isn't out. Uh, Voice was delayed for ages, and I think it's still not like decent API experience. So like the whole honeymoon period is over for that, and people are now bitching about, oh, rate limit. This thing changed and broke my workflow. Like it has gotten into this. This is now just a thing that we have, and it hasn't changed the world.
One thing that does seem like it will change things, at least a little bit, is the fact that AI has such significant energy requirements. And it's looking like there's going to be a lot of spending in the near future on utilities or like power, basically. Any way that power could be generated. The U.S. infrastructure for power is like outdated significantly. That's going to need to be updated in addition to creating more power generation sources. I heard that was it Microsoft like someone's looking into nuclear power. A large group is looking into nuclear power. So like
So like I want to expand on this a bit more. Like
yeah,
as of right now, like what you're talking about, like it's like a future. As of right now, AI has contributed to Microsoft and Alphabet having to announce that they're missing their decarbonization targets and they're recarbonizing
yeah,
because in Omaha there's like a very unpopular carcinogenic coal power plant, but it specifically will stay in power now, like in production longer now, because Microsoft needs to feed a data center.
Right.
And this is like a story across the world. They all talk about, oh, modular nuclear reactor, blah blah blah. Also because Sam Altman has invested into one of these startups, and he's like shilling them.
Mm-hmm.
But as of right now, it's like with crypto. Like the AI energy boom is offsetting the advances we make in other industries with renewable energies and keeping coal and other dirty energy on the grid, and also just like overall shifting the market towards like things that are not good for the climate.
Mm-hmm.
Side note, I will dig it up for Sean's later. There's a new mechanism of like accelerated like global warming that we realized now that wasn't in any of the models. So like the self acceleration of us not doing our thing has gotten again worse than expected. This is like the second or third time this has happened in the last 2 years. So I'm sure we have some margin left on that. Um, yeah, but like going back to the thing, like as of right now, they are talking a lot about nuclear. They're talking, but they're investing and keeping on coal, and
Right.
that's not going to change for another 2, 3, 4, 5 years because you can't build nuclear facilities faster than that.
Right. So, like, yeah, that's one thing. And then the last is like, what is this actually gonna do here? Um, how is OpenAI going to respond to this? And from what I've seen and like what I think makes sense, is there's going to be there has to be a massive shift in like what they're doing. It cannot just be make bigger foundation model anymore. Like if they do that, they will not be able to reach something powerful enough to justify their like massive amount of investor funding before their clock runs out. So we're going to see like pushes towards commercialization. At least that's my take. Not sure if they're going to be good, but like that is what is going to happen. And I think the fact that we see OpenAI going towards that, and they're the name brand, is going to have like ripple effects on what other groups are doing as well.
Yeah, so like they need to commercialize, that's for sure. The big question is like, is what they have and what they're gonna get good enough? I think you can make some scenarios that have them surviving, and actually like stuff will change for some of the reasons we touched upon. But like to me, it looks like OpenAI is somewhat fucked, and I have some like stats to back that up.
Okay.
So like while we were recording this episode, something dropped. Where I found something that has a chart in here for the year-on-year change of U.S. tech employment. And if you like, what would you expect from this chart to show since the release of ChatGPT and like the overall AI boom and hype?
I mean, I would. Well, the thing is that other software industries saw plummets from their employment. So I would actually expect it to go up a very very small amount briefly, and then I would expect it to drop pretty substantially. But that is someone who has been deeply involved in the job market over the past 2 years. So like I would not say that is necessarily something that is intuitive, uh, but that is what I would expect.
So yeah, like basically, if you look at employment growth, so like again, like it's tech, so the worst you get is less growth than before. You don't see actual like full-on losses globally yet. Um, but you have the COVID and like Ukraine like impacts, like COVID, a big crash, then recovery, and then Ukraine blip, and then it has kind of crashed down in 2023, 2024, and recovered slightly, but is then receding again as of right now. And there's like the summer bump that occurs seasonally.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of many data points that even though like in these surveys and individual measurement people talk about like uh, productivity gains, we don't see like employment rising, for example, which either it means the AI is already stealing our jobs, but like, don't think so. But we don't see new things being done that like creates any type of job. We don't see upskilling. We don't see like more people getting jobs because now they have better coding tools. We so that's one concrete kind of like impact and lock-in. Like another one is that all the studies that look at global economic data, they don't see any impact of ChatGPT's release or productivity bump. It's just
Oh, interesting.
previous trend. Like if you did the thing of like look at the time series before and after ChatGPT, do you see like an inflection point?
Right.
There's nothing.
Just like take the derivative, and it's
Exactly.
the same-ish.
And so you could say that's because like it's still not adapted enough. It takes time. Blah 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 blah. But it's just like right now there's no evidence of a positive impact. So these two things together basically mean like at best they're going to contribute to business as usual, but now instead of like recovery or continued growth, also giving a bit of like a job growth in some industry. Like even if they manage to deliver, it's gonna like kill a lot of employment. So that's like an actual impact. And like if they don't manage to deliver fully, then they will not be able to contribute as much to like continued growth. But there will still be some sections that will be impacted. So like we talked earlier about how companies use this mainly in customer service roles, in like slop generation, like there, like it has actually killed the job market completely.
Oh yeah, like journalists that were living on like the low effort writing garbage posts, like their jobs are gone,
I,
literally gone.
I would like to like push back on that framing. It's like what we mean probably by that, or like you can correct me, but like there's like uh the genuine like low effort I push out schlock, which is actually like also dying, but there's also like corporate soulless gig work, like
Yes,
writing
sorry.
ad copy. And that is not low effort. It still takes effort to do that, even though like it's like gonna be corporate. But like there's like it's a job, It's like it pays the bills.
Right, and that's sorry. That's that. So writing ad copy was not something. That's not why journalists became journalists,
Yeah.
but it was how many of them paid the
Made
bills.
rent. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like occasionally you have the project that you actually work on, that you actually care about, and like that you spend more time on. You might get some money, you might get no money, depending on like how you're gonna get monetized for it. But like the way that you actually made rent was doing these sort of like, yeah, corporate guy says I need X on Y, and like you just spam it out, and it's not like it's a it's worth doing, or well, you know, it
Yeah.
was necessary, and they paid for it, um and now they aren't.
And this is like so like scenarios. The most likely scenario, like the ones where OpenAI is the least fucked, and I still think they're fucked, is that basically this happens in a few more sectors enough to at scale make up for their investments so that they don't die. But it's gonna be like under delivering on the promises and like only delivering on the like the capitalist element. So like leverage to squeeze younger coders even more because junior coders will basically have to like do the equivalent of like game programmers, like grind out in horrible conditions until you have like enough of a brand yourself that you kind of build up to not be easily replaceable. But everyone who is like junior will always have to think, oh, we could also just like give your salary to O1 and it's gonna be not as good, but like if you're gonna make demands, um,
Right.
so like that's like the most likely winning scenario. The reason why I say they're still fucked is because they're still a commodity at that point. But like I don't think they have a moat. I don't think OpenAI will be able to uh, not have anyone immediately reverse engineer the models as soon as they exist. And I don't think, and this is something would be interesting on your take, that governments and enterprise partners will accept a monopoly.
Mm.
Like governments have a thing where they have supply chain management, where like if they're smart, at least, like if Trump becomes president and like like cleans up, then differently, but like uh, the current US military is a genuine, like, well functioning machine, and so has rules about having at least two suppliers in America for most critical parts. And they give contracts in a way that means that even if you don't get the contract to build the plane, you still get enough to keep your plane building program running in the competitor company, because that creates like a more efficient market environment for the government to keep buying stuff from private enterprise. So like that's not gonna be as much of a thing for at least government contracts. It might be enough to like sustain them, but unless they get really big on the lobbying, I don't see any reason for governments to even accept like a duopoly like they do with AMD and Intel, because there's no patents on any of this.
Yeah.
Like the rational thing for the government players to do is, okay, you're American, you're certified, so it's going to be like 8 of you, and you will do confidential, and it's still going to be like multi-billion-dollar companies. Don't get me wrong, but it's going to be like commodities still, because they will also still compete on the private market together with a governmental place, like we see in cloud in general, like we see in IT in general. So that's like that part. And for enterprise clients, I think there they have a problem with like Microsoft can do LLMs. Like the only reason why they're not doing it right now is because they're letting like OpenAI take the heat, but like Phi exists, and as soon as OpenAI is no longer there to sue them on like stuff, and as soon as Microsoft gets like licenses on all these textbooks that they are training on, they're just gonna like deploy that shit. So like
I mean, Phi's pretty trash.
I thought it was like really good in all of benchmark, but it's just overfitting on the test set, or
Yeah, no, it's super overfit. Yeah.
okay, so then like scratch that, but like there's like there's no reason why they can't do their own thing.
Yeah, if I mean, I think the reason is talent acquisition, because OpenAI and it
So
has been like eating it up so much with the amount of money that they give. But like if that were to die down, like I think they would easily be able to compete.
they can buy Mistral if they need
Yeah.
to.
Oh
Like
well, that's already in the works. It looks like.
yeah. So uh, I don't think this is a mode even on the enterprise scale. And then also kind of like talking about like enterprise like customers, like what enterprise are we gonna like try and sell to, like and like through which sales channels? Like maybe they're building all of it up, but like IBM is still around, Oracle is still around, like all of these other cloud enterprise companies, they're all around. uh, AWS resells Anthropic and has their own internal like projects. So like uh, I don't see a monopoly there either, which means okay, cool, you're selling to enterprise, but you're selling a commodity, which is like
Yeah.
not the story you want to tell as a startup. The story that you're selling there at that point is DigitalOcean, not AWS. Like DigitalOcean is like it's still a good company, but like from the startup hockey stick chart expectation is a bit of a failure. Not enough to
Mm.
like be a complete loss, but like it's not the thing you would compare yourself to if you're selling a yourself. So that's what like my like even in the best case that is like a realistic scenario that sucks for all of us, but they stay rich, they're still probably fucked and will barely survive.
Okay, so then you said like scenarios. So what are the others?
Like that scenario that we'll briefly say and then just like shit on, and then we will make an episode to uh, debunk it, is like the actual AGI scenario. Like this will eat everything, and they will ask O5 to make them $1 trillion, because at that point money doesn't matter anymore. It's like just like the full on Kool-Aid play. Like that one is not gonna work out for many reasons, and I'm not even gonna like acknowledge
Yeah,
more
no,
than
no, no.
that.
I mean the like the ones that you think are actually viable here.
If they don't just peter out or stay at roughly this level but slightly better, but get like solidly better, they might do things like the deep mind play of like doing like custom bespoke integrations, and they become like the OpenAI in particular becomes the next Google, but now it's Google with some processing built in, and the processing is human drivable. Is like the actual oracle of the world, still not AGI, but like a hugely useful tool that is actually difficult to get around. And then like the mode that you build there is more for the integrations and being the first to market and stuff like this, like the brand. That one
Right.
I don't think is likely, but is at least plausible. And that one is one they point to, I think, to serious investors. Like the hype crowd is the AGI blah blah. But like if you want to make the actual like business case, then it's basically this. Like this will get better, an undetermined amount, and we just need to capture enough to be indispensable and be the first to be indispensable. And that's also like when the government play that like you have this big cloud and there's actually huge spend on your thing in particular because it has the highest utility, and then you get this compound effect.
Right.
I think that one
So
is
it's basically just betting on first to market.
first to market, and that there is more stickiness than what we're seeing right now.
Sure. Okay.
Because like what we're seeing right now is like there's some stickiness, but not a lot. And the question is like, does it stay sticky or not? Does it become sticky or not?
Well,
And then
and
like,
just to make sure I'm understanding, what do you mean by sticky here?
um, if they increase prices, do people actually shift, or do they just go
Mm. Mm-hmm.
like in a real commodity? You know, like if you go to the store and you have like your favorite brand of rice, if it goes like 10% up in price, most people will already buy the next cheaper one
Right.
because people do not care that much about rice. Um, that's what it means to be a commodity. So like as of right now, you can use LLM as the front end, like the actual Python package LLM by Simon W. And you can just swap out keys. And OpenRouter can select providers for you. Like it's the most commodified thing ever. The only reason why you would use one model is if it's actually better at what you're doing, and then you pick and choose your use cases basically. So it's not a monopoly play. Um, it becomes sticky if the user experience, the quality, and so on actually becomes a differentiator. And that one is more likely than the AGI thing, but I don't give it high chances. That's why I say it's not like the realistic one. In all other cases, basically, we will see a bust, like many ways to bust, basically, which might still leave Sam Altman filthy rich. But Ed Citron talks about these warning shots in his series of documents, and some of them we have seen now. We have seen O1 was a bit of a dud of a release. It felt rushed. I don't think people outside of the like True Believer hype bubble, tech pro bubble are that hyped about it. Like the casual user isn't, and it hasn't actually like just flat out improved on anything. Even like the uh, Devon AI people said, "Oh, our internal model is still better." So like,
Mm.
what's the point then? Um, so that was one of the things, like a dud delivery. Another thing is a price hike, which has kind of been announced or is in the rumor mill. So like I said, it's like it's a sign that like you are no longer in the people have solid belief in your boundless potential. They would like some validation that if you increase prices, you will actually gain revenue and people will just not jump ship.
Mm-hmm.
So in that scenario, then like we will see in the next few months a continuation of the consolidation and buy up pattern that has been happening already. You know, like character AI got acquired to reabsorb some of the talent. A bunch of other startups seem to be struggling. I think Cohere had like some abysmal bad revenue numbers for the
Yeah.
investment. So like we're already seeing like the consolidation that like if you go back to like the dot-com bubble and the like internet booms and all of these like tech booms, once you see the first ones dying is usually like when the going gets tough for everyone and then like a few are left standing. And this is not where you want to be if you're at the same time basically still pitching people on future productivity at some point.
Yeah. Are there any other scenarios that you like wanted to bring in here, or like?
So we had stupid AGIs that that's not going to happen. Optimistic thing that OpenAI is selling as the low probability one, then the high probability, but still they're probably fucked is the current utility continues and like it's a tool for capitalism, and then this the bubble busts and we see like an AI winter. Um, Other scenarios are basically some form of shock, kind of like some of the tech plays play out and inference becomes much cheaper. Um, there's an actual like war or trade war or something else, and like there's actually utility to be found in something like that. Like there's lots of like unknowns that like I think people are like usually using these as excuses, but I wouldn't ascribe them a lot of probability mass. One interesting scenario that doesn't have directly to do with AI, but more of the electricity thing, is that as of right now, we are in a GPU overhang where GPU prices are falling because people like all of the startups have trained their LLMs and they have GPU left over and they're trying to resell it. So these sorts of overhangs are interesting from an overall economic perspective. That like if we have lots of energy and data center overhang, and then this bubble bursts, or like it begins to burst, it might save them because their operational costs plummet. You know, kind of like they're the biggest. So actually, it all bursts, but there has been so much build up around that that they can survive if they have like a big investor or they had enough cash in the war chest and stuff like that. And I think that is like an interesting one to track, especially because of like this co-narrative of nuclear investment together with data centers and AI. Like that one
Yeah.
is I think interesting for people to track, just as a continued industrialization and tech eating the world and ruining the planet kind of like consequence of things.
Yeah. So then, to be clear, what is the muck here, and where is the meaning?
The
How do we find the value in
In the
these?
discussion around OpenAI's business, you would say.
Yeah, maybe that's a better way to put it.
I think Darren at Semogulu in this interview that you mentioned has like the realist take that like in 10ish years it would be stupid to bet against the technology itself and the investment having no value.
Hmm.
That's one thing that gets kind of like hidden by all of the hype. But the externalities are real and not talked about. So that's like one part of the mug. Like coal continues because of crypto and AI bullshit.
Right.
Uh, Deep fakes are becoming a thing, and even some US entities are talking about making like sanctioned deep fakes as part of their psyops or other operations, which then gives credence to a bunch of other stuff. So like we're degrading the planet and our infosphere with what we have already, and in the kind of like mad attempt of trying to create value that lives up to the hype.
Hmm.
And the hype is not justified by what numbers we are seeing, and what numbers we're seeing that give it a bit of like legitimacy should still make most of our listeners, especially if you're like programmers or tech people who think they're safe, really consider unionizing and voting appropriately, because even if it is increasing productivity, it's not reflecting itself in jobs for normal people. So, from the perspective of humans, what's the point exactly? That's, I think, like the main pieces of signal that you can get from following all of this stuff. And the and
Yeah.
the and the muck is everything else. The muck is all of the hype, all of the boom, all of the talks about the hockey stick, all of the investment that, as of right now, has no backup and no clear plan on how it's supposed to pay off.
The muckiest part to me, which is tied to what you said just now, is the value proposition of AI to the working class. I think there are people who are saying that it will bring value. You know, it'll make our lives easier by increasing productivity. That will be seen like in increased salaries and increased time off to the working class. And I think after going through all of these, that just seems like very untrue. It does not look like that's where any of this is going if we allow it to. Um, and so like that would be the biggest muck that I would take away from this is just like de facto this is not going to benefit us, as in the majority of the population. It is
This
going
was
to consolidate power and give it to the people who already have lots of wealth.
this was reflected even in this State of AI report, that like public opinion is shifting towards nervousness about stuff like this. Like public sentiment reflects what you just said. Like people are aware of this, and I am very happy that even in the Silicon Valley bubble, like the top thread on Hacker News on an article analyzing this right now is basically, oh yeah, I can't wait for this bubble to burst. And it's no longer like this like optimism and hype. It's just like even people who are really in this are becoming aware that, okay, like this is like it's not gonna help me, and what I'm gonna get from it we already have. Like I like having Claude. I like having like what we have. Don't get me wrong, but like I
Mm-hmm.
can live without it, and I think it's good that people have a sentiment, and I think it's worth, as a closing thing, even if I said we dislike them the least, to explicitly shit on the Machines of Loving Grace
Oh
cringe
God,
fest. So you do not need to read this,
no,
but
please don't.
this is basically the Entropics lead's response to Sam Altman's dredging thing we just mentioned in the also ran story of like I think 1 or 2 episodes ago,
Mm-hmm.
where the title is one of these things where like tech bro deeply misunderstands the way this title is understood by, and like the original reference is understood by people who are actually like analyzing and thinking about text, that like
So wait, what is it referencing? Real like just quick aside, what is it referencing?
so there's two chains of reference. The popular knowledge is a band from the US that took it from an 18th century or 19th century like utopian or maybe utopian question mark poem,
Right.
that it's kind of like a Brave New World type of thing of like, is it utopia, is it dystopia, like all watched over by machines of loving grace, is like I love the party and the party loves me type vibes. And critical discourse will emphasize that this is not something to actually like look forward to,
Yeah.
but like leave it to this industry to take things that should make you slightly uncomfortable and make you like think about, oh, is this what we're doing actually a good thing? And go, yes, actually, we're doing great. And this type of messaging needs to be called out. Same thing for the Mark Andreessen various manifests that he's now like slightly shifting away from. All of these are deservedly like cringe as fuck and do not deserve like intellectual engagement, but do deserve ridicule. And I
Yeah.
think if you need permission to do that, if you're a listener to us and you feel uneasy about AI systems and feel like all people with fancy credentials and high paying jobs are telling you stuff and you don't feel uncomfortable just calling out of it, not do. Like,
Yeah, tell him I told you to. Actually, that'll be good for the show too. So yeah,
yes,
say that I specifically, Jacob Hames and Igor Kravchuk, told you to tell them that, because then they'll listen, and that would be nice.
I don't think they will listen, but
They might.
yeah, like I'm really so like I always feel like an asshole. I still have imposter syndrome, but like I talk to people about AI stuff who have just correct takes, and they ask me like very carefully because they are still a bit like hesitant to go against this optimistic grain on whether they're misunderstanding something. And then they're really relieved if I, with like AI PhD, tell them, no, actually, you got it. Like, it's complete bullshit.
Yeah,
And like, that is a bit of a sad thing about like credentialism and signaling and status things. And this is what is part of the muck as well. To go back to our closing thing, that like, these are, for the biggest part, extremely wealthy white nerds. And we are like I don't know about your situation, Jacob, but like let's say like moderately wealthy, like middle class white nerds in tech, people who engage in this discourse, they're all actually extremely like privileged, and that's the only reason why anybody takes it serious. But there's nothing behind it, and
yeah,
that's our closing thing, I would say.
and that's all the muck that we can handle today. It was quite a bit this week, but that's what we do for you. So hit subscribe and share us if you thought this was valuable. We love doing this. It's been really fun. And so we're gonna keep doing it and getting these ideas out to you.
Also important note, just to be precise, do shit on people and call them out for cringy shit, but don't harass people. Like if you go like hate mob against any of these people, even like Sam Altman, who we really don't like, but do not harass any particular person. Like feel free
Yeah.
to tweet at them and tell them that like you think their thing is cringe, and for technical comments refer to us, but like do not harass anyone. I think that's
Yeah,
worth saying explicitly.
that is worth saying explicitly. Um, so yeah, engage in the discourse. And also if you're in the US, vote.
Oh God, please vote. Even if you're not in the US, if you're American, just like get that shit sorted. Like I don't know if it's still time, but like please vote.
And with that, we will see you next time.